So, what was the point of me sharing those stories with you? Well, my point is that education will always be here. Education was here during the credit crunch. Education has been here during recessions. Education was here during the pandemic. Education is still here during the cost of living crisis. Education will still be here for whatever's next. Zombies? Anyone? I don't know. Education will always be here when you're having that little disagreement with your venue over high costs. Education will still be here when you're having those little disagreements with parents. Education will still be here. So let me talk to you about some things regarding how you can actually be still going into schools and nurseries during this time. There is such a thing in schools called ring-fenced funding. Funding that has to be spent on provision. Can't be spent on other things. Can't be spent on utilities. Can't be spent on capital costs. Has to be spent on the provision that the government has intended it for. So ring-fence funding, I've already mentioned a lot of it now. Up in Scotland, pupil equity funding. In England, pupil premium funding. For primary PE and sport for years 1 to 6, we have PE premium. There are lots of examples of ring-fenced funding that you can potentially be utilising should you want to be working with schools and nurseries this year. Now, I stood on this stage exactly a year ago telling you about the time when I was a brand new art coordinator in school, very excited to bring in my first children's activity provider to enrich my subject, and he turned up in nothing but a loincloth. I don't know if you remember that story, but it was all about being creative. It was all about being cross-curricular. Because I didn't have much budget as an art coordinator, but I was able to call in other coordinators and their budgets to bring this gentleman in. How can you be cross-curricular with your provision? How can you make sure your provision sits under many different subject areas of the national curriculum? If you can help and be more creative with your provision, a school can be more creative with their budget. And reduced expenses. Who here wants reduced expenses in their business? Imagine a world where somebody, magical fairy perhaps, but somebody prints all of your marketing letters for free. And then, once they've printed all of their marketing letters for free, they send them out to hundreds of children on your behalf. And then, they give you a venue, and it's either completely free or really low cost. Imagine that. That magical person is not a fairy, they're a school. A school or a nursery. This is the reality for you. When you start working with more schools and nurseries, you may have reduced costs, reduced ongoing marketing costs, reduced venue hire costs. Business gets a bit more simple when that happens. I want you to write this down. If you haven't got any room left on your notepad from all the fantastic speakers today, write it on your neighbour's head. Because, oh yeah, phones are coming out. I forgot about that. Because when they see the value, they will find the budget. Do you want to know my biggest piece of advice about the budget? And I'm saying this because I get asked all the time, Cerys, can you tell me about school budgets? Can you tell me about funding formulas? Can you tell me about where they get their budget, how they allocate their budget? And I say, do you want to know my biggest piece of advice? Don't worry about the budget. You know, once you've figured out funding formulas, once you've figured out who the local authority is allocating money to where, you don't have a crystal ball to figure out whether your local schools have spent it yet or not. Your time is far more valuable. Your time is better spent communicating the value of what you offer, because schools right now are looking for value for money. So, how do we do this? We need to communicate value, we need to demonstrate value, and we need to package value. When we communicate the value of what we do, we solve problems. Problems for head teachers, problems for schools, problems for nurseries, nursery managers, children, parents. We're solving problems. When we communicate value, we're sharing the benefits of what our service provides for the children, for the school, for the nursery. When we communicate value, we are sharing with them results we've already got, how we've added value to other people's lives, other school lives, other nursery lives. When we demonstrate value, we share with them and show them how we can deliver outcomes to pupils, how we can create impact for the school or nursery, how we are different to other providers doing similar services to us. When we demonstrate value, we're showing them how we're different, and we're showing them how the children react to us, which is super important as well. And when we package value, something I am so proud of with the Approaching Schools Academy and some of the members whose stories I've shared with you today, is that they have packaged their value in such a way that schools and nurseries are now buying more from them and for longer. This is what I want for you, for schools and nurseries to be buying more from you and for longer, because you've packaged your value, because you've given them options to suit different budget levels at this time, something that's super important. If you want to find out a little bit more about communicating value, there is a free guide available to you. But I want to tell you a story. This is a story of a little girl. And this little girl was very, very shy. This little girl didn't feel like she fitted in, and this little girl didn't really enjoy school as a result. But this little girl had a whole other life outside of school. She did drama, she did art, she did music, she did dance, and she wished her providers would be able to go into school so she could enjoy it a little bit more. This little girl was me. That I recognised that I was really fortunate to be able to have that experience outside of school. What about the children who are not that fortunate? What about the children who cannot currently come to your community classes? We have an opportunity, but we also have an obligation. We've got to go to them. We've got to go and reach them in their schools and in their nurseries. But guess what? Schools aren't coming to find you. Schools aren't coming to find you. You've got to go to them. We've got to go and reach those children, have a bigger impact by going to the schools, by going to the nurseries. Stand up if you believe you are a change maker. Stand up if you are here to make a difference. Stand up if you are here to create a legacy, to build your business, to earn additional income, to have a bigger impact on children's lives. I believe we get to do it both. We get to do both. We get to create successful citizens of the future by enriching education today. You can future-proof your business and have a bigger impact on children's lives. Because in the words of the late, great Steve Jobs, the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are usually the ones who do.